Dear Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Hartley, thank you for letting us take your time to learn and discover more about the Democratic Party. It was cool to hear someone else's views on the election coming from a different standpoint. You both seemed thoroughly educated on what you stand for and presented it in a very professional manner. By hearing someone else's opinions made me think more on what I personally stand for. I also enjoyed the stories you shared with the class and how you were able to relate them to what you stand for. Though there are some things we disagree on, it gave me a better understanding on how the opposite side sees and thinks. I never have really gotten the chance to hear the Democratic side's opinions besides what you see on the TV and hear on the news. I found the whole discussion very intriguing. To get a realistic overview of this topic grasped my attention. I was also glad to hear that you are both pro-life, as I am also completely against abortion. I'm glad that you both really expressed your opinions. It gave us a little taste on how you feel. This class time has given me a more clear picture on all the political parties. I feel more educated on what the Democrats stand for besides just saying that they are the opposite of Republicans. It has given me a bit more preparation for the next presidential election when I'm old enough to vote. In the past, I always thought politics were only for adults, but I now have realized that us teenagers are free to have opinions too. I also found that there are things us minors can do to support our opinions. In these past few months of studying government, I have learned a lot, but having you both come in has also taught me more. I also feel like a lot of my questions about your party have now been answered. Personally, I found it quite interesting that you used to consider yourself a Republican, but are now registered a Democrat. It showed me you won't always find what you are looking for just on one side. When I left class, you both really had me thinking. I wish we had more class time to ask and answer more questions, but I do feel a lot more educated on the political world. Again, thank you for letting us take your time. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I thought you both really expressed your feelings and thoughts very intelligently. I agree with some bits and pieces of what you said, however, a lot I did not agree with. I found it very intriguing how you are a Christian Catholic, but yet you are a Democrat. I feel like these days, it's not very common. So I thought that was really interesting. I also liked how pro-life you were. I find that a lot of Democrats are not like that, and so yeah. Mrs. Hartley, I found it very interesting how you used to be a Republican, but now you are a registered Democrat. It's weird how, as you get older and more knowledge, you change your opinions on things. So. I also like how you vote for whoever you think is best and not just whoever the Democrat person is. I think that's neat and a lot more people should do that. I thought that your talking and your answering our questions was very interesting, and all of your answers were very thought out, and you just seem very educated. So yeah, thanks for talking in class.
Dear Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Hartley, thank you so much for coming to speak to our class. It was very interesting listening to your views on this presidential election. Thank you for answering all of our questions. The whole class time made me think more on what I stand for. I did have a hard time agreeing with some things, but that helped me see your side of the spectrum. I'm glad you spoke freely on your opinion. One of my favorite parts was when you both talked about different experiences you've had throughout your lives, like with known people who have struggled with immigration. I respect that your views are well thought out. When I left the classroom, I had a new respect for the Democratic view. I am very excited to see what this presidential election's outcome will be. It was interesting to hear how your views have changed throughout your voting experiences. For example, how at one point you were registered Republican but chose to become Democratic. This brought to my attention that when I am able to vote, my opinions may change on some things. The way the media portrays the political parties made it seem like we can never have a common ground. I was surprised to hear that Clinton was not your first choice in a candidate. For some reason, I thought that most Democrats were for Hillary. I was glad to hear that you were pro-life. I am a strong believer in the whole pro-life campaign. Your party was so confusing to me, but I feel like many of my questions have been cleared up. The previous debates, in my opinion, have given no party justice. Your views on the debates were very intriguing. I have felt that the debates have been biased, but that may be because I am biased. With you coming to our class, it really showed me that we are all have opinions and we all have to stand on what we believe. I'm looking forward to the time I can vote and be able to express my views. Now we wait and see what the election will bring. I'm glad you came and spoke to our class. Thank you again for opening my mind and making me think. The class time was well spent. I am sad we ran out of time to ask more questions. I really enjoyed the whole discussion. Sincerely, Corey Weston.
You, Mrs. Hartley, Mrs. Miller, first off, thank you for coming to our class and thank you for taking the time to engage with us. I enjoyed hearing your opinions and I respect your thoughts on our questions. I think it's good that you are pro-life, but I think it's better to end abortion rather than just prevent it. But I do agree with, I do respect a lot about what you said, and it was enjoyable to hear someone else's opinion and their beliefs.
I want to thank Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Hartley for coming to our class and taking time out of your busy schedule and coming. Both of you guys had some really good points with all of our questions that we asked. Thank you for sharing your views on different things. It was interesting hearing what you think or believe. Even though that I disagree on some of the things that you guys say and believe in, it was still great hearing about what you think and your views on it, and I totally support all what you guys say, and I respect what you guys say.
I liked almost everything you guys had to say. I enjoyed hearing from the other side, and I thought that you were well spoken, researched, and educated on the subjects that we asked you about. I really liked what you guys had to say about the abortion and education and accessible healthcare for everyone. It caused me to think because I hadn't really heard that before, and so I went ahead and researched it. And Washington University Medicine studied this, and the results show that if we provide free birth control to women, it will reduce unplanned pregnancies and abortions, since the majority of abortions are unplanned and they happen among teenagers and women with less education and a lower economic status. So if we educate people on the correct way to use contraception and provide them with it, then it should successfully reduce the number of abortions. However, I think this is a good idea. I don't think it will work because it would cost a lot, it would drive taxes up, and I think that people should know that when they carry out the act, they are putting themselves in a position to get pregnant, and it's not really the government's place to provide the means to not get pregnant. As it is, it's no one's fault but your own, and it's a consequence of your actions, and you should be held responsible.
So I guess for me, it was interesting to see just another perspective on a situation that I don't ever seen in a specific perspective of Republican Christian homeschooler. Now seeing what somebody thinks when they're supporting like a Democrat, especially from the homeschool perspective. Because I had always seen Hillary in this light of this kind of, from a perspective of this kind of, underhanded, lying kind of person that's very artificial, like how she has even said that politicians should have a stage persona and a private persona. She's basically saying that she's acting and she's on there, and that's not her. But it's interesting to see other people's perspectives and to see how they could support her even through these a lot of things that a lot of people said were bad. Yep.
I think that Mrs. Hartley and Mrs. Miller were great people. They both had great thoughts and stuff to say about this election. Hearing them talk made me feel more like a Democrat isn't as bad as you think. But you will always disagree with the other person. It was great to hear another person's opinion on politics to get a different view on life. Being a strong Republican will not make me change to become a Democrat. Mrs. Hartley and Mrs. Miller were strong and confident women, and I felt that was a great quality. They believed what they thought very strongly, and that was great. They also are not for abortion, but will help prevent mothers from aborting their child. I think that they were very good women and that they believed what they thought were really good.
Gun rights have become a major controversy over the past decade. There have been two views generally on gun rights. These views are one, that you should have the right to own a gun, and two, that you shouldn't. The arguments for each side usually sound like we should have the right to bear arms in order to defend ourselves, or we shouldn't have dangerous weapons, aka guns, lying around just for anyone to use. Both sides have good arguments. We have our arms for protecting ourselves from bad people. If we didn't have guns available, then we won't have to worry about the bad guys having guns. While each side has respectable opinions, there's a fact that I cannot ignore when choosing a side. That fact is that pro-gun states like Texas have many less accidents/shootings on average compared to anti-gun cities like Chicago, which have heavily anti-gun laws, more like suggestions, and have much higher ratings of accidents/shootings. While I see where each side is coming from, just because you take gun rights away doesn't mean the bad guys won't have any guns.